Okay, here we are. The Akashic podcast goes video. Exciting times, exciting times. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Christian, and the name of my practice is Stone Street Akashic. I started Stone Street Akashic 7 years ago, and I have been working with many different souls in in their walk of life and their experience through the Akashic Records, through past lives. This particular episode is very special because over the last 18 months, I took a bit of a hiatus to focus on fatherhood. I focused on fatherhood. I did a couple of things. I tried to understand life in a completely different way. And the the amount of folks that reached out to me saying, Christian, I need some perspective. Christian, come on back. Um, it's it brought me back to where I belong, and that is studying spirituality, teaching or communicating spirituality through a number of different methodologies. So on this particular episode, we're going to call it the Akashic Records 4.0. And also, this particular episode is complemented by an article on Medium. So the video or the audio for this podcast is going to be complemented by an article on Medium. So if you like to read, you can go ahead and read the content. If you like to watch me or listen to me, you can do either one. But they both go together. Um, think of it. Think of the Medium article as something where I can go in more depth and explain things a little bit better in my writing. Um, so let's go ahead and get started with the show. The Akashic Records 4.0. Um, and Christian, why are you on revision 4.0? What has happened? What is going on? Well, what happens is that wisdom and knowledge and experiences are always evolving, right? So as a being, as a soul, you are always evolving, and as a being and as a soul, I'm always evolving. So my understanding of the Akashic Records, as my wife always calls it, as this young stud trying to start my practice, is not the same as as it is now. Um, at the very beginning, all I knew was that it was this library and it held all this information. And in it, you can find past lives and you can heal them and you can rewrite them. And we'll talk about that. But everything always changes. The universe is very rarely a flat line. So you'll have some flatline moments, and those are the moments that you take to integrate things. And then you're going to have the uphill moments when you're learning. When you are learning and you are seeing the thin and the thick, and that is what's making you grow. And then eventually the universe slows down a little bit more for you. And then you finally understand the lesson that was being taught, right? So that is why we are onto revision 4.0. So let us talk about the Akashic Records. So the Akashic Records, if we go by a textbook definition, are the the cosmic library where all of our experiences are kept. Um, if I take this further, uh, I can tell you that the Akashic Records are the memories and cosmic imprints of the soul. And memories, because the soul goes through a lot, and imprints, because the soul does a lot. In your experiences, there is cause and effect. There is action and reaction. So whatever you do in X incarnation, in X planet, in X dimension, is going to affect the previous and the next. So for example, when you do a session with me and we go into a past life and we make a change, is going to affect that particular life and that particular narrative, and is going to affect also your current perspective. So that's why they are the memory and the cosmic imprint of the soul. And with the Akashic records, we can do quite a bit, right? Like we can understand past lives, we can understand our present situation, we can start to dive into the future. Um, and the future is not set in stone, but it is always written in pencil. We can always make changes. Um, so that is what the Akashic records are. And then what makes this a new revision? What makes this a new understanding? Well, let me tell you about this then. The in this particular dimension and in this particular plane that we are currently existing in, we like tangibility. We like something that we can touch, that we can feel, for us to believe that this is real. And some of us not necessarily crave that tangibility all the time, but most of us do because we live in a physical universe, right? Like I can touch this. I know that these are my AirPods. I know that this is the case. So then how can you explain to someone the Akashic records and say, yes, these are your memories of the soul? Like this is the experience. Yes, you were an alien. Yes, this is absolutely true. So that is one thing that I started to run into in spirituality. It is very theoretical. Being theoretical does not make it untrue. However, for us to be able to integrate the downloads and the perspectives, we need to have some sense of tangibility. So, in in my research, I started to look at the Akashic records and karmic contracts and relationships. So the thing that hit me is that when we come into this particular plane and any other plane, there is a process of creation. And for us as humans, the process of creation is intercourse, right? We are half of our father and we are half of our mother. So your male projective energy and your female receptive and nurturing energy. We are half of those two. We're the best of those two energies. So we become the third aspect of that, sometimes a little bit imbalanced. And what we are doing as we live, as we go, we are trying to find that balance, right? What we call remember. So then, when there is that creation process, and this applies to everything, right? So when we look at an animal, we have a family of animals. When we look at rocks in geology, we have a family of rocks. When we look at plants, we have a family of plants. So when we look at outer space beings and beings of other dimensions, they are also grouped in families. They are also grouped in species, right? So then when I was taking a look at this human experience, the thing that came up that I started to really pursue in individual work and research was the family tree. Because as beings, we have to come through or family tree. And the way I always explain this is that think of um, this as a funnel. And if the family tree is this funnel that communicates with the universe and the Akashic records, we have to come through it. And in that, we inherit and start to make connections with traumas and beliefs and sense of self and so on and so forth that we we are taught by those parental units. And there's a certain structure to this, but I can confidently say that the family tree is the physical rendition of the Akashic record. And why can I say this and why do I say this? Because the Akashic records are a spiritual aspect. They are a theoretical aspect that holds energy. And in that energy is the memories and the imprints of the soul. So then, for you to fulfill the universal maximum of as above, so below, as a higher and as a lower perspective, as less density and high density, the family tree becomes the rendition of the Akashic records. And how else can I really sustain this? Well, let's talk about past lives. I can tell you that I have done over 1,000 past life regression sessions with clients. And when we go back into past lives, there is always a connection to the family. In 1,000 sessions, there has always been a connection to the family. This is something that I myself did not want to touch at the very beginning. This is something that I myself did not want to step into. And everyone that is listening to this, and if you're a spiritual person, you know and you understand that the moment you shy away from something, it means that you have to go at it. And Melissa and I, if you heard the episode from, I think, last January or 2 Januaries ago, we were learning through the process of infertility. And we had quite a bit of work to do um, in order to have our son and bring our son into this plane of existence. Um, so then it's like, okay, I will welcome the notion of the family tree. So then when I started to go back through my notes of all the sessions that I've done, there's always a familiar component. There's always a component, and this has even happened in different planets. There is a mother figure, there's a father figure. There's always that connection. So when we take a look at those past life experiences and they start to link back to the family, then we're starting to come into something, right? Um, we are starting to see and understand that a key, not the key, because there's no such thing as the key, but a key to understand ourselves, to know thyself, is to understand the family tree. And a lot of you are probably cringing right now because you don't want to deal with your family. And you may not want to deal with the baggage and the trauma that comes with it. But me sitting here in front of you and or you listening to me or you watching the snippets on Instagram and whatever, uh, I would take it as a sign that it's time to perhaps start to engage with this stuff. So let's talk about the family tree here. And when what is the family tree? So the family tree is are the relationships, people, and connections that really come into play to have you and I here. So you would have yourself here, then you would have a motherly and fatherly figure, and that same thing happens to the motherly and fatherly figure, and then we start going up the tree. In those experiences, because if we say that you are the best of your motherly and fatherly figure, um, you generally inherit or have the memories and the imprints of, at the very least, 3 generations back. And why do we say 3 generations back? If you refer yourself to this book that we call the Bible, the one of the best treatises on magic, um, God punishes parents who sin against their sons and daughters for up to 3 generations. And that is why we, at the very least, take a look at least 3 generations back. A lot of the issues that that people come with, they're usually found within one or two, but we go three generations back. Sometimes we're able to go up to eight, nine, 10, and we find a lot of information. So there are a lot of imprints that are left in the family tree. And in that, when you start to now talk about ancestral healing, there are different ancestors that start to bring their imprints forward because those imprints are a part of you. So then you have these unconscious connections. And when we talk about the unconscious memory, that is what at the end of the day what the Akashic record is everything in your memory bank. Some of it we're not even ready to assimilate. Some of it we're not even ready to fathom. But it's there because it's the memories of the soul and the cosmic imprint. See, we continue to go back to that. So then what happens here is when we are ready, when we hit a certain trigger point, then the qualities of that ancestor or that particular imprint start to come forward. And then all of a sudden life changes. Then all of a sudden things go sideways, or all of a sudden things go great. And then the Akashic record through the family tree becomes a very powerful tool to get to know ourselves and understand what is it that is holding us back, and how do we move forward. Um, so then this is what brings me to the topic of healing. When in the study of the family tree and the Akashic records and spirituality and moving forward is called metagenealogy. So meta having a purpose and genealogy in studying your family lineage. That's and that's the work of Alejandro Jodorowsky. I have had the honor of being a student of Alejandro's son, and I have the honor and the pleasure to be a direct student of one of Alejandro's disciples, Christopher Carroza, my teacher, mi maestro. And that is where this work really stems from. So when we start to step into the healing component, what often happens in spirituality is okay. Well, we'll go do a meditation, right? We go do a meditation, and then I have my affirmations that I do for 21 days, right? When I first started and I was doing Reiki, um, I always gave people like the 21-day homework of the affirmation: I love myself, I am great, and so on and so forth. But what I started to find on follow up was that yes, the affirmations were great at 7 in the morning. As soon as the person went downstairs, the day just went to shit because they were not living the affirmation. In the washroom, in front of the mirror, they were living their best life. But when it matters, when action happens, when action is needed, they were not living up to what the affirmation was. So okay, so that is something that happens in a lot of practices, right? So you have an affirmation, you have a meditation and or integration, but even in that integration, like there isn't the follow through. There isn't the that direct communication that happens with the Akashic record. I started to do this in past life sessions where we actually started to have confrontations with the family. We started to actually move things around, almost as in the language of dreams, and that helped some people. But still, we were falling down on the follow through. And then what came at that time was actually a concept called psychomagic. Psychomagic goes hand in hand with metagenealogy. And what psychomagic is going to posit is that the unconscious memory and the Akashic record do not speak the language that you and I are speaking right now. If I say to the universe, universe, I am living my best life, great. but how am I showing the universe that I am living my best life? So when we look at particular traumas and we look at a particular wounds, if you want to call them, or experiences or limiting beliefs, the theory behind the concept of psychomagic, with psychomagic being an action that brings together high magic, symbology, and the language of dreams, as well as theater, will actually speak to the unconscious memory and the Akashic record and say, hey, this is ticked. This is ticked off the list. We are good. Um, and what do I mean by an act or a psychomagic act? So let's say, for example, I'll talk to you about some of the work that I have done on myself. Um, there was an act where I had to take a rock, put that in a backpack, and tie an umbilical cord around myself, um, and tie the other end to the rock, put a picture of my mother there, because between my mother and I, there was a connection, obviously, because we all had that connection, but there was almost like the overarching, overreaching mother that was keeping me from doing the things that I needed to do. So the moment that you cut that cord, and the moment that you do that work, things change. Um, we always say, you are your first client as a healer, as a therapist. You're always your first client. And I went out and I became my first client. And I did not believe in this stuff until I found it, until I started to work through it, until I started to test cause and effect and understand how it worked, how it didn't work, what this meant, what that meant. So that if you want to heal the Akashic record, if you want to have a hand in creating that future, I would have a look at Metagen. I would have a look at Psychomagic, and see how that resonates. Absolutely, you can always message me on Instagram or send me an email, and I'm always happy to chat. Um, but that is the what I wanted to talk about on the healing aspect. And just because I don't like long episodes, I like to quickly be in and out, and I kind of sort of give you the what's the word I'm looking for here? I give you the crumbs so you can start to look and you can start to form your own opinion, and then maybe down the road we work together. Maybe down the road you send me a message and you have a dissenting opinion. I love that. So if I'm going to summarize it for you here, there is more to the Akashic records than what we know. There is more to healing and integrating that what we know, and this will always be true. And when you step out of the comfort zone and you engage in something new, something that is cringy, the family is cringy. Um, my teacher will be the first person to tell you the family sucks. It is one of the hardest things that we have to work through. But when we take a look at the imprints, when we take a look at the experiences, when we look at the empirical observation, it is the family that we carry with us and that we carry on top of us sometimes, and sometimes is our lives. We're not living for ourselves. We're living for somebody else. We're still asking for permission. We are still looking for a reason to exist, and we're looking for a reason to be seen and be understood. When that should be the job of the family, and proper child rearing, that there's no such a thing. But we're going to talk about that more in next episodes, because there's another therapy that I have been working through called family constellations, that on its own it's not very strong. But when you bring in the metagen component, when you bring in the psychomagical component, when you bring in the Akashic Records, when you start to bring in the past lives, um, it has the potential to be fire. Um, so we will discuss that in later episodes. But really, the the point of today was to say, hey, we're back. You can follow us on Instagram, Stone Street Akashic, or you can email me, Christian at stonestreetakashic.ca. Um, and I'm happy to be back. And we have a lot of good information to communicate. We have a lot of good content planned for you. There's a lot coming. I haven't been just, being a father. I have been learning. I have been searching. I have been cause and effect, playing with the universe a little bit, see what gives, um, and and see what happens, so I can do what I do, which is communicate that to you. So exciting times. So I guess that would be the summary and conclusion, right? Be willing to step into the things that make you uncomfortable. And there's more to what we know. There's more to your healing than what we think we know. And if you think that you've hit the wall, if you think that maybe you've tried everything, because I was at that point. If you think that it's time for a shakeup, like shoot us a message. Let's have a conversation, see what perspective we can give you and point you in the right direction. So yeah, this is the comeback episode just to get us started. And like I said, there will be a link on the show notes to head to Medium. And if you want to read the article that I put together on the Akashic Records, the family tree, and psychomagic, that'd be awesome. Um, Other than that, I will see you next time. Probably not next week, but the week after that. We'll try to go to bi-weekly and make sure that we're giving you quality content, that nothing is rushed. You can always connect with me on Instagram, Stone Street Akashic, Facebook, Stone Street Akashic, and Christian at stonestreetakashic.ca. Until next time, my name is Christian, and this is the Akashic Podcast.